Hello viewers, and welcome to yet another match of Warhammer 40,000 Conquest. My name is Mitch, and I am the Hive Tyrant. Today, I'm pleased to present you with a game featuring two of our upcoming Planetfall cycle Warlords. The instant you crack open your Boundless Hate War Pack, you'll be getting our Dark Eldar Warlord Archon Salaine Morn, as well as the Chaos Faction Warlord Barzul the Hatebound. On the bottom, we see Travis McDaniel has decided to take up the reins of our upcoming Archon, and as a 2/7 Warlord, she possesses the reaction where after you play a Cabalite or Raider trait unit at a red material icon planet, you gain one resource, albeit limit once per phase. So even though Cabalites don't have any command icons thus far, the Hellion Gang is a Raider which does have one command icon, and she focuses pretty heavily on resource accumulation. On the opposite side of the table, we see Barzul the Hatebound, the player without the initiative token. He's a 0/5 Warlord, radically dissimilar to any other we've seen thus far, and his reaction is after a unit he controls at his planet takes damage, not is assigned damage, but takes damage, you move all of that damage to him as a Warlord, and then once he's bloodied, he becomes a 3/11, so it's kind of a careful bit of cost-benefit you're going to have to weigh between having him hail, where he can tank damage for some of your beefy, formidable, durable units, keep them alive, or let him get bloodied, and then he can just proceed to pulverize the enemy here. But we see a fair few deploy actions having already taken place. We've got a Warlock Destructor here at planet number 1. It's a 2-cost, 1 command, 3 attack, 4 hit point unit with the upkeep of 1 optional resource during the deploy phase, or you're forced to get rid of it. But considering each and every planet we see on the board happens to have a green strongpoint icon, if Travis can manage to win early on, then maybe he need not keep the Warlock Destructor in play long enough for that forced reaction to become a little bit of an economic liability here. But we see a Void Pirate played by Guy to planet number 3. Guy Lev is going to be our player, having taken up the reins of Barzul, and we see another copy of Void Pirate played out by Travis at planet number 5, which is going to be opposite a copy of the attachment Slaaneash's Temptation. So I'll be very curious to see in regard to how much of a kind of a drawback or hindrance this actually proves to be to Archon Salaine Morn, just because she kind of specializes in generating a lot of resources, or at least saving a lot of resources, and if that happens to be the case, if she's successful in doing so, then having an additional 1 resource tacked on to each of her units may not really be much of a drawback. But in any case, we see a copy of her signature army unit, the Shadowed Thorn Pillagers, played out conventionally to planet number 4 as a Cabalite. It's going to be able to refund 1 resource, but of course, because of Slaaneash's Temptation, because it was played out to a non-attachment affixed planet, that's going to be basically kicked back to its traditional value. So a cost of 3, refunding 1 resource. But copy of Shoot 'em Mob to planet number 4 opposite the Shadowed Thorns Pillagers, and then it's going to be freshly promoted so that Archon Salaine Morn can generate that card in resource. So in assessing our Dark Eldar players' lingering cards, looks like Travis has another copy of Promotion. He's got an Archon's Terror to go along with his Archon Salaine Morn, and he's got a copy of the 2 shield value card Suffering. Guy, rather dissimilarly, has a few interesting units in hand. He's got 2 copies of his signature army unit Barzul's Cleavers. For 3 cost, they've got a command icon. They're a 2/5, which is incredibly durable for a signature army unit, and their ability is that once per phase, you can deal 2 points of damage to that unit as a cost, so that it gains +2 attack for its next individual attack. So it's akin to a Catachan Outpost. And because they've got a big, beefy body that's, laden down with a lot of hit points, they're fantastic in surviving the receipt of damage long enough to transfer that off to Barzul. And of course, if they deal themselves damage, you can transfer that to Barzul as well. A lot of players thought that you could use units like Alpha Legion Infiltrator, Incubus Warrior to attack with those very high attack value units, and then basically dump their damage onto Barzul instead. But because his ability is a reaction as opposed to an interrupt, because it keys off of taking damage as opposed to the assignment of damage, he's definitely not quite as powerful as he would otherwise be. So, throughout the course of this match, be sure to let me know, do you think that Barzul is sufficiently powerful? Seems as though the general community consensus thus far is kind of poo-pooing on our Cornate Warlord here, and Archon Salaine Morn definitely stands to see a fair bit of development throughout the Planetfall cycle. She doesn't necessarily have a lot of tools at her disposal now. I mentioned earlier all existing Cabalites, save for the Shadowed Thorn Pillagers, happen to lack any command icon presence whatsoever, and with the sole exception of the Raider Hellion gang with its own one command icon, she definitely isn't really doing any card or resource choking, so maybe she will be all about resources, but we'll have to see how things go. And both of our players, I believe at this point, have passed. They're both deciding where exactly to send their warlords. Something important to keep in mind is that for either of our blue planets, we've got Planet 2 and 5 are both currently blue. We've got Sowing Chaos, which is a deploy action, could destroy each army unit with 2 or lower cost at each blue technology icon planet. And at present, the only unit that is threatening is going to be this Void Pirate. Barzul's Cleavers are conveniently not going to be able to be brought down by that effect. And then last of our new units here, a new addition as of Decree of Ruin, we're going to see the Ravening Psychopath. So after it resolves an attack, it can deal itself a point of damage to deal a point of damage to an enemy army unit. So typically fantastic with Zarather, but it's another unit that could potentially transfer some damage over to Barzul just to make sure to kill off enemy units here. So, let's see. Looks as though we've got Barzul at planet number 4, and at planet number 5, we've got Archon Salaine Morn. So we're going to see a battle at 1, 4, and 5. Looks as though the Warlock Destructor is going to win that planet entirely unopposed, and it looks as though both of our players are going to be able to reel in a reasonable bit of command. So let us see. That's going to be 4 cards and 1 resource in total for Glaive Guy, and it looks as though he's already seen all 4 copies of his signature army unit in the first 11 cards of his deck. That has got to be some sort of world record. But he also got another copy of the 1 shield value Sowing Chaos and a Rogue Trader. And instead, Travis got 2 cards and 3 resources. So he's got another Shadowed Thorn Pillagers that he could dump into play as a, ambush, deploy it during the command or combat phase at either Yavvarn or Taurus. It would cost 3 thanks to Slaanesh Temptation, but then you'd get 1 resource back, so basically you break even at 2, but you do need the additional upfront resources, and he ended up getting a copy of Siren Zithlex as well. So Travis ends up winning Ossus 4 entirely uncontested. That's going to be 1 resource stolen from the opposition, and now he's going to have to decide, does he want to keep this Warlock Destructor in play during the next round's HQ phase or not. Looks as though the initiative token is of course stolen by Barzul. Well, the token isn't stolen, but initiative is commandeered by Barzul at planet number 3, and that's going to be the Shoot-A-Mob taking this opportunity to take a shot at the Shadowed Thorn Pillagers. So will we see promotion or Archon's Terror or Suffering discarded as shields, just so that this promoted unit can survive to the end of the combat round? We don't have any tricks at Guy's disposal, and is it going to be worth it for Travis to rescue this unit? A promotion isn't the biggest deal to throw away, and indeed it looks as though he's decided to keep it in play. He's going to be able to kill off that copy of Shoot-A-Mob should he swing in return, because we do not see a 2 shield value card in the possession of our Chaos player. Shoot-A-Mob is nice in that it's, 1 resource for 1 command icon, but again, as a 1 hit point unit, it's not going to be able to benefit from Barzul's presence anytime soon, and whether or not Barzul actually decides to retreat from the planet, which it looks like he is going to do, you know, I guess the best case situation is the player with, I guess Barzul had initiative, so he had to decide to retreat first, and that's going to be Archon Salaine Morn with 4 units in total, so 3. Archon Salaine Morn does have more units than did the Chaos player, so even though Taurus was won by our DE player, Taurus was not triggered. So planet number 5, we see Battle Erupt. That means that the Slaaneish's Temptation is going to be discarded. So Archon Salaine Morn deals a couple points of damage to Barzul's Cleavers here. If they decide to deal themselves 2 points of damage, they could potentially take a swing at the Archon herself for 4. But if that is the case, then we could see Archon's Terror used to banish that unit, or we could simply see a 2-value shield card, drop that down to 2 points of damage. Then the Archon could conveniently kill Barzul's Cleavers if it does not retreat, which of course it seems like it would. Looks as though it is deciding to deal itself 2 points of damage, and there's that copy of Archon's Terror, banishing the unit from that planet. There's no Iridial in play that we can see, of course, so it looks as though Archon Salaine Morn is deciding not to be risky and just to get rid of that unit, set it up for a convenient death during following turns, because as that deal 2 damage is a cost, you're not going to be able to shield against it, and because it only has 1 hit point remaining, you're not going to be able to transfer damage to Barzul the Hatebound, and of course, because you're stuck with a 1 HP unit, it's going to show up at combat the next round exhausted, and it's just going to be far too easy to kill. So that means the battle is over with, Slaaneish's Temptation is gone, we're going to see a Shadowed Thorn Pillagers now put into play prior to the conclusion of the combat round. I believe there's an action window prior to the phase, prior to the phase itself, not the combat round, but the combat phase ending, so that this Shadowed Thorn Pillagers can be put into play for 2 at planet number 1, and then their 1 resource is refunded, just in case the Archon ends up drawing another Raider or Cabalite for the deploy phase, and then wanting to get, that bonus there. It's generally a good idea. Like, if we'd have seen that ambush, if we'd have seen a subsequent ambush this following turn, you definitely want to get the most out of your resources. But an HQ phase comes and goes. That's going to be 4 resources and 2 cards for both of our players. New planet number 5 here is going to be Farron. Looks as though the draws are a copy of Ammo Depot to draw additional cards, and another copy of Shoot 'em Mob for our Glaive Guy player. Note that Sowing Chaos is potentially going to be pretty deleterious here for our Archon Salaine Morn player. Last round, we see Planum relocate the Warlock Destructor to Yvarn. The Warlock Destructor does stay in play, so if a Sowing Chaos gets activated, that'll be a dead Void Pirate, it'll be a dead Shadowed Thorn Pillagers and Warlock Destructor, and Barzul's Cleavers is going to be able to survive to mop up at that planet, and Travis only has 1 green Strongpoint icon, so if we see our Chaos player take planet 1, 2, and 3, that could be the game, or any combination of planets 1 through 4. If he gets 3 of them, that'll be the game for him through those green Strongpoint icons. Note that Farron happens to be a red material icon planet, so that means it's good for Archon Salaine Morn here. So it looks as though we actually have this copy of the Barzul's Cleavers killed. It's very interesting indeed that Barzul decided to use that as an effect. Perhaps it makes it all the more likely that he's going to be able to benefit from triggering Taurus, so maybe Barzul is kind of showing his hand in wanting to go to Taurus this round. We see a copy of Suffering affixed to the Barzul's Cleavers at planet number 1, so for a 3-cost unit, they've now got 0 attack value unless they trigger their action in order to augment themselves, and we've now got a copy of Siren Ziflex positioned at planet number 2, nicely preventing any Chaos units from showing up at that planet deployed there, because if they are deployed, they'll enter play exhausted, or, well, I guess after they're deployed, they'll be exhausted, and there's going to be that copy of Sowing Chaos. So goodbye Warlock Destructor, goodbye Shadowed Thorn Pillagers, and also goodbye Void Pirate. So all of those units are going to end up being destroyed, and something interesting here in the hand of Travis, we've got a copy of our Flayed Skull Slavers, so I can only imagine we might actually see this played to planet number 1, and then have Archon Salaine Morn also commit to planet number 1. This is an upcoming card from our 6th and final war pack in the Planetfall cycle of war packs. You'll have to forgive the kind of shoddy quality Proxy image here. I doctored an image taken from a card fan, and then I slightly modified it in Photoshop, and it looks as though it's a little bit worse for wear. I opted for a little bit too much sharpening as opposed to leaving it extraordinarily blurry. This is a pretty fantastic unit. It's one of 2 existing Cabalites that does possess a command icon. 3 cost, 2 attack, 3 hit points. While it's at a red material icon planet, it gains a +2 resource bonus, and I can only imagine that somewhat akin to the upcoming Orc Scrap Naba, it's going to be a great way for Archon Salaine Morn to generate resources for herself. So both of our players are deciding where exactly they want to commit their warlords. Travis has 1 resource and 1 card in hand. Guy doesn't have nearly as many, kind of competent, powerful units on the board, but he's got 0 resources and an incredible 7 cards. He's got, let's see, in regard to shielding, he's only got a 1 shield icon copy of a Sowing Chaos. That did definitely hurt his opposition's chance at victory here, but it looks as though Barzul's still looking pretty good for the combat phase. If Barzul shows up to Taurus, he's not going to be able to win at that planet. He could go to planet number 1 just to try to get himself bloodied, which may have to happen just so he can try to prevent his opponent from kind of winning a planet here, but looks like Barzul is going to show up to planet number 2 just to shut down the card bonus there for the enemy, just to guarantee that he's going to be able to generate 3 cards. So I suppose a pretty clever move for Guy, but he's going to be able to I guess he'll just have to run away at the end of the combat round, and that's going to be a random card discard. But in regard to cards, it's a Khorne Berserker, Evil Sun's Warbiker, and another copy of Void Pirate for Barzul. So Khorne Berserker's got a great body with which to take damage to be transferred over to Barzul, but that's maybe slightly self-defeating considering it's got the Brutal keyword, and then the Evil Sun's Warbiker is still, it's great in being able to potentially attack for a value of 4 at the cost of 2 resources, but it's definitely not going to allow any damage transference to Barzul here, and all of this talk of transference has me thinking about being a therapist again. But in any case, looks as though it was a total of let's see, 2 resources? No, sorry, 1 card and 2 resources for Travis. But combat breaks out at our first planet. The Flayed Skull Slavers takes its initial action to deal 2 points of damage to the signature army unit, Barzul's Cleavers here. They can deal themselves 2 points of damage in order to potentially be able to damage one of the enemy units. And it looks as though that is indeed what they're going to be doing. Are they going to take a swing at Archon Salaine Morn, or are they going to take a swing instead at the Flayed Skull Slaver? They're not going to be able to hit hard enough to actually kill anything, and the Cleaver's attack is only for the next 1 attack this phase. So that's going to be Archon Salaine Morn taking 2 points of damage. Note that there's a copy of Archon's Terror and a promotion in the hand of Travis, but apart from that, there's not really anything. There's that 1 Archon's Terror combat trick. There's a couple 1 shield value cards, but Archon Salaine Morn looks as though she's going to deal the potentially killing blow to that Barzul's Cleavers, and it is indeed gone. So again, I mentioned it before, but be sure to let me know in the comments what your initial thoughts are, what your first impressions, your initial assessment are of these 2 upcoming Boundless Hate Warlords, just because this match is definitely playing out interestingly indeed. Yvarn is going to potentially allow for Archon Salaine Morn to give her the opportunity to let Glaive Guy put a unit into play for free. Unsurprisingly, Travis decides to show a little bit of restraint and does not trigger that ability. Siren Zithlex is going to have a chance to take a swing at Barzul or kill off this Void Pirate. I think if it were me, I would want to kill off the Void Pirate here. The Void Pirate, of course, attacks Siren Zithlex first, and my reason behind wanting to, kind of kill off this Void Pirate is not just to block, I guess, my opponent from getting benefit from a bunch of cards should somehow Barzul win command the following round, but if you can prevent Barzul from being bloodied, and I suppose Barzul could stubbornly stay at this planet until he is eventually bloodied, consider that Barlas happens to be the victory condition planet for Travis, so if a 0-5 shows up to a combat and ends up being bloodied, granted Barzul does turn into a 3-11 Warlord, but all the same, Barzul is going to have to vacate that planet. So Siren Zithlex is presumably going to be able to bloody Barzul here in round after round of combat. Looks as though Travis knows exactly what's going on, and we might just see Barzul flipped over here if it is if it is Guy's ultimate goal to get his Warlord bloodied. I see what they're saying. So they're just going to go through the motions of dealing the damage one at a time. Siren Zithlex is going to take a swing. Barzul doesn't shield, takes 2 points of damage into the combat round. Siren Zithlex going to take swing after swing until eventually Barzul is indeed bloodied. And it looks as though our players are going through the motions here just for the sake of the video, and I very much appreciate their humoring me, but it seems wildly unnecessary. And big problem for Barzul is anything that is deployed by him is going to end up entering play at Barlas and then being exhausted, so that about sucks. And then if, some big nastiness gets readied, Archon's Terror is going to be able to banish any non-unique unit, and unless we see Rograk's Bloodhand, or maybe a Zave's Split Tongue, or Inquisitor Caius Roth, something like that, all of it is going to just show up exhausted and not really be able to do much, and then Archon's Terror could get rid of whatever does show up. Archon Salaine Morn herself is going to be able to arrive at this planet. The Flayed Skull Slaver isn't going to be able to generate additional resources because it's not a red planet. Kind of the dismay, I'm sure, of Travis is that he hasn't come across any formidable army units to try to win this planet here, and it's a bit of a damn shame. So I'm kind of wondering if Travis is actually going to send his units and whatnot to Taurus and let Barzul potentially win at Barlas. I guess not, but that definitely would have been an option, like let Barlas pass and then just hope that you can draw enough cards to actually fill a planet with units. I mean, note 7 resources, but not a whole hell of a lot of units to actually put into play with all of those resources. So Raid is nice, Archon's Terror is nice, but unless we see a lot of cards that... the Shadowed Thorn Pillagers, this is not a red material type planet, so we can't see those ambushed into play. I suppose Travis is going to have to hope and pray that he comes across multiple copies of Archon's Terror or something like that. Glaive Guy's got a ton of cards in his hand, but the problem for him, instead of lacking, whereas Travis has a surplus of... resources and lacks cards, the exact opposite is true for our Chaos player, and man, oh man, if you had to play any unit, that is a hell of a thing. I mentioned him earlier, Rograk's Bloodhand, ladies and gentlemen. It's a 2/5 with Brutal, and it's got Bloodthirst, so as soon as one or more units have been destroyed during a combat round, you double its attack, so if it takes 4 points of damage, Brutal, of course, kicks in, and that brings it up to an attack value of 6. The instant a unit dies, that doubles its attack value up to a total of a possible 12, and that could allow Archon Salaine Morn a sterling opportunity to, just get bloodied in a single swing, and Archon's Terror isn't looking like it's going to be able to do too much. So are we going to see Barzul the Hatebound and Rograk's Bloodhand together be enough to prevent our Dark Eldar player from winning at that planet? I guess we'll kind of have to see. Note that Guy doesn't possess any planet-type icons at all. He hasn't captured any planets. There are no symbols in his victory display, so is Archon Salaine Morn going to be going to planet number 2? Is she going to be going to planet number anything? Or is she going to be gutsy enough to show up at planet number 1 and try to win all those cards? She won't win the additional resources for the Flayed Skull Slaver, but let's see how this is going to break down. Both of our Warlords are going to go to planet number 1, and let's see what they get. This is going to be a grand total of 3 cards and 1 resource for Archon Salaine Morn. So not the Flayed Skull Slaver. No bonus due to no red planet. Just to make sure that our players are well aware of that. And I guess let's see how this is going to go. So Barzul is the only ready unit at this planet. He's going to be attacking as a 3/11. And let's see what he can do. So Travis, his kind of card draw here, he got a copy of his signature support. It's not going to be doing him any good right now, and I'm sure he wishes he'd have drawn this during the, last round's HQ phase. It's the Nexus of Shadows. As an action, limit once per phase. You pay 2 resources to draw a card. If Archon Salaine Morn specializes in resource generation, that's a fantastic means of kind of evening things out a little bit, as we clearly see. Salaine Morn has a surplus of resources, yet a dearth of cards. And Glaive Guy here, what did he end up coming across? I don't think he actually earned anything during this HQ phase, so he's got a copy of, let's see, in regard to shields, he's got a 1 shield value card, and I guess, viewers, if you're not focused on commentating the match here, do the mathematics that I'm a little bit too distracted to try for. So Hellion Gang takes a swing at Barzul the Hatebound. He takes 2 points of damage. He's got 9 HP left. If he ends up being, killed, that's going to be the game, but is our Dark Eldar player going to be able to leverage enough damage to see that happen? We've got Archon's Terror, of course, which is 1 shield icon card, same with promotion, and then a raid itself can be used to get rid of a couple points. I suppose we're going to wait on dealing any damage to Rograk's Bloodhand for as long as possible. Barzul the Hatebound is going to take a swing at Siren Ziflex, and I can only imagine that we'll see a copy of Promotion. There we go. That's going to be the Promotion discarded as shields, so the Siren herself takes a couple points of damage, and the longer you can prevent dealing points of damage to Rograk's Bloodhand, given his Brutal keyword, the better. And of course, as soon as he's the only unit attacking, if there's no Chaos card effect to kill off enemy units, we're not going to see his Bloodthirst specialization trigger. That's Siren Ziflex dealing out 2 points of damage to Barzul the Hatebound in return, and we're not going to be able to expect any combat tricks at all from Barzul. And even though he's got a big formidable body, a butt of a size 11 worth of hit points there, it looks as though he's being whittled away pretty quickly indeed. So Barzul is already at 5 hit points. If this planet is lost by our Chaos player, that is going to be the game, and Archon Salaine Morn is going to win. So Archon Salaine Morn is presumably going to decide not to retreat with any of these units. Actually, it looks as though Siren Ziflex has run away, so a very interesting choice indeed that we see that unit run, and I'm really wondering if that's going to make a big bit of difference in the long term. So I don't quite understand why the Siren has evacuated the planet, but I guess our copy of Hellion Gang is going to take a swing. That'll be 2 points of damage dealt toward Barzul the Hatebound, and that's going to be a fantastic opportunity. Like, let's see here. If he takes that damage, he'll be at 3 hit points remaining, and then that'll be 4 points of damage that could be dealt out. Okay, so here's what we're going to see. That's Sowing Chaos. It's going to mean that Barzul is going to be at, I believe, 4 hit points, so he's going to have to, I think, sacrifice. Yeah, so he's at 7. If he attacks, he's going to risk losing the game because he doesn't have as much as a single shield icon card in hand. I can only imagine that perhaps Travis is operating thinking that Barzul would have far more shield cards in hand than he does. 9 cards in hand and not a single shield to show for it is absolutely ridiculous, but I still think Siren Ziflex could be contributing so much if she were sitting here at this planet. But Barzul decides to take a swing. That's going to be a swing of 3, cut down thanks to raid to a total of 1. And now Barzul is gonna cost himself the game, so the Flayed Skull Slavers are gonna be able to attack. I suppose unless Travis is thinking that Barzul has shield cards in hand that he doesn't, that is gonna be it. Looks as though Travis is deciding to pressure Barzul. It's going to be a swing of 2 from the Flayed Skull Slavers. Note that our last planet is Karnath. That does not mean that Iridial is in play, and I guess, Guy has decided to try to win this planet as opposed to running away, showing up, and having to retreat as his first combat action and giving up initiative. And this is going to be Archon Salaine Morn taking a swing. Is Travis going to have his Warlord potentially kill off Barzul? And yes, indeed, we're going to see it. That's going to be a 2 attack value attack, taking a swing at Barzul the Hatebound. And of course, we do not see any shield cards whatsoever in Guy's hands, so that's going to be 11 points of damage dealt out to Barzul the Hatebound. With that incredible handful of 9 cards, there is not a single shield card to be found anywhere, and therefore Travis piloting Archon Salaine Morn, the upcoming Dark Eldar Warlord from Boundless Hate, is our victor. So congratulations to Travis, but thank you to both of our players, and of course congratulations on a game well played by both of them, but thanks to them for letting me record the first time in a few weeks that I've actually spectated, commentated, and recorded an Octagon match. So hopefully you, as the viewer, enjoyed this preview of our upcoming Boundless Hate pair of Warlords. But be sure to let me know what you thought of how Barzul performed, how Guy maybe could have constructed his deck differently, and the same goes for Archon Salaine Morn. So we've seen the Flayed Skull Slavers are coming up in the final gambit. They certainly could make a considerable bit of a difference, but given the limitations of Barzul being on his Hail side, that it's an action, it's not an interrupt, it keys off of taken damage, as opposed to assigned damage, is that going to mean that this is kind of a relegated to the binder class Warlord, or is there something that could come out to elevate him to a more competitively prominent status? But I'll just end this video by saying thank you once again for watching, and as always, if you enjoyed this content, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe to my channel if you've not done so already, or if you are already subscribed, I always encourage you to share this content, as the more people there are that stumble upon these videos, the more individuals end up exposed to Conquest. They may like what they see, they may someday join our community, and of course, all together, we continue to send the message to Fantasy Flight Games to continue to support this fantastic product. If at any point you'd like to get in touch with me, I would encourage you to do so through Facebook or on Twitter, and now more than ever, I'm always on the lookout for players to send in either live action or Octagon games for me to commentate and publish upon my channel. If you ever feel so inclined to help support the Hive Tyrant, I would encourage you to investigate and make a contribution to my Patreon. But once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, be sure to check back in again soon for much more Conquest LCG content to come.